Sean? Good afternoon. I'm Sean Bentley, the 2025 president of Eta Kappa Nu, which is the Honor Society of IEEE. It is wonderful to see so many of you here today to recognize and honor the achievements of two great scientists, Dr. Robert Woodrow Wilson and Dr. Arno Penzias, through their elevation to HKN's highest membership level, eminent member and honorary eminent member. Eta Kappa Nu was founded in 1904 by a group of students who envisioned an honor society that would recognize excellence in scholarship, character, and attitude for electrical engineers. This year, we are proud to celebrate our 120th anniversary. Over the years, we have grown into a robust society that supports promising engineers in all IEEE fields of interest throughout their careers by offering leadership, training, professional development, volunteer opportunities, mentorships, and perhaps most importantly, to be part of a global community of like-minded people who embody technical excellence and ethical leadership. Currently, HKN has 279 chapters at universities around the world, and collectively, our students provide over 100,000 hours of service to the universities and communities each year. 98 of the top 100 engineering schools in the US have Eta Kappa Nu. Over 3,000 students each year are inducted into our society, and it confers lifelong designation. There are over 46,000 active alumni and professional members of Eta Kappa Nu. We take the idea of lifelong membership and development seriously by offering 3 conferences each year, producing podcasts, sponsoring alumni receptions at IEEE events around the country, and more. In addition to students, we induct professional members who embody the core values of Eta Kappa Nu, namely outstanding scholarship, impeccable character, and a dedication to lifelong learning and service. We look for professionals who make contributions to the field, demonstrate leadership, and perform service to the greater community. Paula Prasanna, who welcomed us earlier, is the chair of our Professional Members Committee and does an amazing job of making sure that professionals who share our value become part of HKN. We're here today to elevate Dr. Robert Wilson and Dr. Arno Penzias to our highest level of membership. Eta Kappa Nu established the eminent member recognition in 1950 and is conferred upon those select few whose attainments and contributions to society through leadership in the fields of electrical and computer engineering have resulted in significant benefits to humankind. Only 147 individuals have been selected to receive this honor. In addition, IEEE HKN offers the recognition of honorary eminent member. These are individuals who otherwise meet all the qualifications for being honored as an eminent member, but who are not named during their lifetime. As you heard earlier, notable honorary eminent members include Thomas Edison, Grace Hopper, and of course, Alexander Graham Bell, who in the 1880s started a predecessor to the modern Bell Labs and also helped start AIEE, predecessor of the modern IEEE. Eminent members include many who have significant impacts in society, such as Vince Cerf, Bob Kahn, Leonard Kleinerock, Bob Metcalf, Gordon Moore, Steve Wozniak, Henry Samelli, Marty Cooper, Royal Sorensen, and more. The histories of the Eminent Member Program and Bell Labs are intertwined. Prominent Bell Lab and AT&T giants Bob Luckey, John Bardeen, and Harry Nyquist are among those who have previously received this distinction. As Eta Kappa Nu celebrates 120 years, and Bell Labs prepares to celebrate 100 years, our organizations have been supporting, recognizing, and elevating the pioneers of our profession. And we are delighted to be at AT&T to celebrate and elevate Dr. Robert Woodrow Wilson and Dr. Arno Penzias. You will learn more about their accomplishments from Greg White and Giovanni Venucci. But as a physics professor who's taught for 20 years, I have often found the discovery of CMB to be a great lesson for students who are looking to become experimentalists. When they saw something unexpected, they didn't write it off as unimportant and say, it's just noise in our system, let's forget about it. And nor did they jump to some conclusions about what they'd found. Instead, they worked systematically to explore the possible causes. And only when they considered everything, and as many of you probably know, everything includes some things that many of us wouldn't have thought to check, did they decide they were actually measuring something real. And not only was it real, it was one of the most important discoveries in explaining our universe. And it's all because they displayed the sort of careful and systematic approach that all experimentalists should strive to achieve. So this is a great lesson, I think, for all students. Most of us will never discover something in the magnitude that they discovered, but we can all work to have this sort of professionalism and positive aspects of scientists and engineers that they had. So Thomas Coughlin, the 2024 IEEE president and proud member of Eta Kappa Nu, could not be with us here today in person, but has sent us a video with his remarks.
I have the pleasure to serve as the 2024 President and Chief Executive Officer of the IEEE. While I am unable to join you in person in New Jersey for today's very special ceremony, I wanted to share my sincere congratulations on this significant recognition for Dr. Robert Woodrow Wilson and Dr. Arno Allan Penzias. HKN, IEEE's Honor Society, is dedicated to encouraging and recognizing academic excellence, impeccable character, and the positive attitude needed to lead and serve others. Every HKN member, from the newest inductee to the seasoned professional, has pledged to live up to, in word and in deed, the principles for which IEEE Eta Kappa Nu stands. Our members use their skills to make an impact locally and globally. Together, they work to promote the highest ideals of the engineering profession and to build a community where professionals and students help one another. Eta Kappa Nu established the eminent member recognition in 1950 as the society's highest membership classification. It is conferred upon those select few whose attainments and contributions to society through leadership in the fields of electrical and computer engineering have resulted in significant benefits to humankind. Since 1950, only 147 individuals have been selected to receive this honor. In addition, IEEE Eta Kappa Nu offers the recognition of honorary eminent member. These individuals are deceased practitioners of electrical or computer engineering who otherwise meet all the qualifications for being honored as an eminent member, but who are not named during their lifetimes. Unfortunately, Dr. Penzias passed away at the age of 90 at the start of this year. Today is a celebration of the extraordinary achievements and unmistakable legacy of these men. As radio astronomers working at Bell Labs in New Jersey in 1964, the duo detected a uniform radio hum in the atmosphere that they could not explain. After removing all potential sources of noise, including pigeon droppings on the antenna, the noise was finally identified as cosmic microwave background radiation, or CMB, which served as an important collaboration of the Big Bang Theory. In 1978, the pair shared the Nobel Prize in Physics for their discovery, which confirmed the origin of the universe. Before I wrap up, I would like to share my sincere congratulations once again on this significant recognition for Dr. Robert Woodrow Wilson and Dr. Arno Allan Penzias. Thank you all for taking part in this special elevation ceremony, and I hope you have an enjoyable afternoon. Thank you.
And so now to speak about the accomplishments of Dr. Arno Penzias, we welcome Dr. Greg Wright, Noki Bell Labs, member of the technical staff.
Good afternoon. I'm going to tell all of you some things about Arno's life that you may know already. Some of you may know already. And I'll tell you a few things as well that especially made him important to Bell Laboratories and science in New Jersey and around the world. So first of all, how are you chosen to talk about the life of Dr. Arno Penzias? There are two requirements, one of which is you worked at Bell Labs when he was there. And that's a pretty big group. The second requirement is that while you were working at Bell Labs, you got into an argument with him. Those are all the same people. I was chosen at random. Arno Penzias was born in Munich, Germany in April 1933, about the time things were about to get very interesting there. When he was 6 years old, he was put on a train with his brother Gunther and sent off to England. He was there for many months before he was able to be reunited with his family. His family did all get reunited in, the immediate family did all reunite in England, and shortly thereafter traveled to the US, where they ended up in Brooklyn, New York. Yay! Yes. Now, Arno attended Brooklyn Technical High School. He showed interest in science and mathematics, graduated from Brooklyn Technical High, and enrolled at City University. initially in chemistry and then switching to physics. He was at City College of New York during its golden age when many of the smartest people in Europe, fleeing the threat of war there, had ended up in New York. And this amazing cohort of people who went on to revolutionize science came up through City College. And he was one of them. He graduated in 1954. Did not immediately go to graduate school, joined the Army, was in the Signal Corps, and to get the story started, what he did at Bell Labs, began to work on radar. After 2 years in the Army, he was discharged and ended up at Columbia University. At Columbia University, Professor Charles Towns was working with another well-known Bell Labs person, Jim Gordon, to develop a new kind of microwave amplifier, maser. Means microwave amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, but you should just call it the maser. And it later led to the laser, which is an optical counterpart. Again, a device which was incapable of measuring incredibly sensitive signals. For his thesis work, Arno built a maser and tried to measure the hydrogen radiation from the Perseus clusters of galaxies. Hydrogen is the most common element in the universe, and the idea was if we can detect that in external galaxies, maybe we can find out how far away they are, how fast they're moving, something about how they formed. The maser amplifier he built and his experiment was unfortunately not a success and was not able to detect the very faint signal from those galaxies. Now we come to the 1960s. 1961, Arno joins Bell Labs. And it is unfortunate that we don't actually know the complete story of how he ended up at Bell Labs and who recruited him. It probably involved Rudy Kompfner, the inventor of the traveling wave tube, who was the person who actually, by his force of personality, got the Crawford Hill laboratory built in order to keep his team together while the new Holmdel building, which is now the Bellworks building, was being built. And in any case, he ended up working for Art Crawford. And Art Crawford was in charge of getting the ECHO satellite project antennas built on Crawford Hill. The ECHO project was the first passive communications satellite. It was a giant balloon up in space. It was actually in orbit. It wasn't held up by being inflated, but it was orbiting the Earth, and its shape was maintained by pressure inside. And that first demonstrated communication via satellite, bouncing voice signals from California to Holmdel, New Jersey. After ECHO and then after the Telstar satellite was launched, there were changes in the political scene which did set the stage for what was to come next. During the Kennedy administration, it was decided that AT&T would not be allowed to participate in the commercial satellite business. A new company would be set up called ComSat, which would become the US member of the International Telecommunications Satellite Consortium, Intelsat. And AT&T was forbidden from actually launching communication satellites commercially. This left an antenna up on top of Crawford Hill that wasn't being used every day. In 1964, Arno and Bob made measurements trying to figure out, well, how much radio radiation is there coming there from out in space? There was a hint in the commissioning measurements that there might be a little more radiation coming than expected, but it was consistent with the specifications and seemed all right. No one really knows if Arno saw that discrepancy and was motivated by it to keep looking at the very faint radiation coming from the sky. But Bob and Arno did because they wanted to know, what is the real limit? How How faint is the radiation coming from the sky? Is the sky at radio wavelengths really dark? And so they built a very sensitive receiver, again, a maser. Arno, who had learned the techniques of cryogenics under Charlie Towns at Columbia, built a cold load, which was basically a microwave source with a very precisely known power output. And you can connect its power output to fundamental physical quantities, so you know exactly how much radiation it emits. And by using this, you'd be able to find out exactly how much radiation was coming from the sky. During this project, Bob and Arno did one of the things which has distinguished Bell Labs throughout history. And that is that members of technical staff are never too proud to do anything, including remove pigeon droppings. And then, after the pigeon droppings were removed, it was discovered that that wasn't it. And it was indeed radiation coming from beyond the atmosphere, the remains of the heat from the earliest part of the universe, earliest days of the universe, when it was created in the Big Bang. Now this everyone knows about, but I'll tell you just a little more and give you some idea of the other bits of Arno's legacy. People came to Bell Labs in the 1960s because of the promise of the laser, the promise of millimeter waves, more bandwidth, the demand for greater and greater communications. And lasers at much higher frequency seem to be the obvious means of communication. But this again was a decade before the breakthrough in the United Kingdom in making very clear glass, which could be used for optical fibers. And so various schemes were tried to actually send laser beams through the air to communicate. There was a link between Crawford Hill and Murray Hill with a helium neon laser, but people knew that there was one problem, and you can observe it pretty much every day in New Jersey. It's called the weather. Clouds, fog, absorb the laser beam. Arno was not just an excellent radio astronomer. He also proposed what is perhaps the first recorded application of a laser death ray. He said, look, what we'll do is we'll just get a really big carbon dioxide laser with hundreds of watts and have it burn a hole through the clouds. Fortunately, after a while, some people went and figured out that if you actually had a laser that powerful, the birds would explode in the way, and bad things like that would happen. But it was a way of thinking around a new way of approaching the problem. And Arno would generally always be challenging people to find ways to approach problems and to think about things differently. And that brings me to the last thing, which most of you won't know about, but people at Bell Labs who were there in those days knew about, and they knew the importance of. I first personally met Arno Penzias when I was a postdoc at Crawford Hill, and it was in Bob Wilson's office. And I had just wandered in to talk to Bob Wilson about something, and Arno Penzias was there. He was talking to Bob, and I don't know how it happened, but we started talking about cell phones. Cell phones were brand new. It was like 1992 or something, the big things. And Arno was thinking, well, in the future, you're going to have lots of cell phones. We're going to miniaturize them. You'll wear them like jewelry. And I was saying, no, you're not going to do that. Once you learn the way one of them works, you're going to use that phone all the time. And here I am, I'm the lowest on the totem pole, and he's vice president of research for AT&T, and I'm arguing with him. And he's good with it. He's arguing back. And this was one of the best things about Bell Labs. And this is really what Arno's legacy at Bell Labs was. He kept the culture of vigorous technical argument alive. If you wanted to argue with one of your coworkers about technical stuff and you wanted to push your position, you could do that. And people would argue in the hallway, and people would come in and walk into people's offices unannounced, say, I want to talk about this. And keeping that tradition alive in the face of the enormous changes in AT&T after the breakup of the Bell system was one of his greatest achievements. That for years after 1984, when the Bell system was broken up, that it was still possible for people at Bell Labs to argue with each other vigorously and think about new things. And I'm very happy to have met Dr. Penzias when we were able to argue. Thank you.
You come back up. So thank you, Dr. Wright, and please accept on behalf of Dr. Penzias this award. Thank you very much. So please observe a moment of silence in Dr. Penzias' honor. Thank you. So next, Dr. Giovanni Venucci from AT&T Bell Labs, AT&T Labs principal member of technical staff, is here to share with us the importance of the achievements of Dr. Wilson.
Thank you. So it is indeed a great honor to be invited to talk about Dr. Robert Woodward Wilson on the occasion of this award. But there's a bigger honor, and the honor for me of having had Bob Wilson as my friend for close to half a century now, I'm afraid trumps any other honor. And so you will excuse me if you hear me refer to him as just Bob. So I met Bob for the first time shortly after I joined Bell Laboratories back in 1979. At that point, he was already quite famous because it was less than a year since the Nobel Prize for the discovery of the cosmic microwave background. Not long after I started working at Bell Labs, Bob had a service anniversary. And as frequently happened in those days, people celebrated the anniversary by giving the honoree gag gifts. And in the case of Bob, his colleagues took a paint can, an empty paint can. They put a stick on it that looked like a plunger, like what you see in the woodpecker cartoons to explode dynamite. And they put 3 knobs on the can, and they gave it to him saying, these 3 knobs you can use to set various constants of physics. It was like the fine structure constant, the Planck constant, and then you can now make your own Big Bang with whatever physics you want to have. And everybody laughed, of course. It was quite funny. And I remember sitting in the back, I was a recent hire, thinking to myself, if I were working for, say, a real estate company, they would be honoring one of my colleagues because he sold so many $1 million worth of luxury homes. This colleague of mine is being honored for discovering how the universe came into existence. This is not your average workplace. And indeed, Bell Labs was not your average workplace. I'm not going to expand on the discovery of the cosmic microwave background because I'm sure all of you have heard it and I don't have to explain to you what it was. But I want to talk briefly about the other item for which Bob is being recognized today, and that's the measurements of carbon monoxide in the galaxy. The discovery, it wasn't exactly a discovery. There were very sensitive measurements. It was known that carbon monoxide might exist and might be measurable. Uh, the reason I want to mention it because I want to contrast the value of Bob's contribution to these two different projects. In the case of the cosmic microwave background, as you have heard, it was kind of a serendipitous discovery. They had built the system to measure something else. They found this mysterious noise, and they had Bob and Arno had the wisdom to recognize what it might be and talk to the appropriate people. In the case of the carbon monoxide, it was kind of the reverse. People had postulated the possibility of detecting carbon monoxide via radio measurements. And people knew that perhaps you could build such a radio, but it took Bob to do it. What is unique about Bob is the ability to build radio systems that have exceptional characteristics, exceptional sensitivity that, frankly, no one else knows how to build. And this is important because one of the things I was asking myself about this eminent award is why? I mean, why does Eta Kappa Nu, that is an engineering honor society, want to honor a physicist? What does that have to do with engineering? It has plenty to do with engineering, of course. And the reason is if you go through the history books and look at great accomplishments by individuals or teams, almost invariably, the great accomplishments have been achieved via multidisciplinary skills, by pulling together great skills in various fields of science. And yes, Bob is a physicist, but frankly, he's one of the best radio engineers that I've ever met. And the two big accomplishments, the discovery of the CMB and the measurements of the carbon monoxide, the first measurements, first observations of carbon monoxide in the galaxy were achieved via his unique ability, unparalleled ability to build amazing radio receivers. So yes, it's very appropriate that an engineering honor society should honor someone like Bob. There's a couple other things that I would like to talk about Bob that go beyond his technical engineering and scientific abilities. Of all the people that I have worked with, Bob is unique in being available, helpful, friendly, supportive, and ready to help no matter what. I have wonderful memories of many lunches in Bob's office at Crawford Hill. I would take my bag lunch, walk into his office, and whatever the topic was, I remember one day we had an animated discussion about alpha waves in the magnetosphere of Jupiter. I'm still not sure exactly what it was, but the conversation was great. And another memory that I have that highlights the kind of person that Bob is, I volunteered to host a bunch of middle school students at Crawford Hill, took them around, showed them the radio telescope antenna and the CMB antenna on top of the hill. And as I was walking through the hall at Crawford Hill, I could have kicked myself. I didn't think of asking Bob in advance whether he might be available to talk to these students. It was not a problem. All I had to do, I barged into Bob's office without even knocking, interrupted him while he was there sitting at the terminal doing whatever he was doing. And I said, Bob, I completely forgot. Could you possibly be available to talk to the middle school students? The answer, of course, was easy. Bob instantly dropped everything he was doing. He hosted us, showed us all sorts of things, and the students, I'm sure, remember that experience with fondness to that day for having met someone like Bob. That's the kind of person that he was and is. But the other experience that I have memories of with great pleasure is we worked together on a project for the wireless shelf tag. Greg was involved in that too. And it started because shortly after AT&T's hostile acquisition of NCR, people from NCR lab in Japan decided to, kind of like in a poker game, see your bluff. AT&T, in trying to convince NCR to agree to the acquisition, kept telling them that once you're acquired by AT&T, you will have access to the prowess of Bell Labs. You will have access to the expertise and know-how of Bell Labs engineers. So it's maybe 10 days after the hostile acquisition of NCR, no longer than that. And a group of Japanese researchers from OISO, NCR OISO in Japan, traipsed into Crawford Hill. We had an impromptu meeting. I had no advance notice in the Crawford Hill conference room. And they presented us with a problem that they had had for 2 years and had not been able to solve. We solved it for them. And that started a wonderful collaboration between us at Crawford Hill and our brand new colleagues from Japan. And frankly, it happened and it became a successful product, a successful NCR product. It was a wireless shelf tag, price tag, electronic price tag that you can put on the edge of a store shelf in stores. And it only happened because of Bob's leadership and indefatigable work at resolving all the problems, technical and non-technical, and managerial and bureaucratic and political. It was quite a pleasure to work on that project. That's the kind of person that Bob is, and it is only fitting and appropriate that he be honored as an engineer.
Thank you, Dr. Vanucci. It is now my great honor to, on behalf of the IEEE HKN Board of Governors, to elevate Dr. Robert Woodrow Wilson to be an eminent member of IEEE Eta Kappa Nu. Congratulations, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Vanucci, for a wonderful introduction. This closes a very long gap. When I was a graduate student, I joined a new group which had just done all of the major engineering work for a new array of radio telescopes in the Owens Valley, the Owens Valley Interferometer. And the task of the group was to develop receivers and other instrumentation to turn it into a good radio telescope interferometer. And one of the things I did was to take out a student membership in the IRE. It didn't cost very much, and I got to have the proceedings of the IRE to read. Anyway, things went on, and in the end, I came to Bell Laboratories in 1963, and there were 3 changes there. One, the IRE and the IE joined together to make the IEEE. Second, I lost my student membership. Third, I was happy to discover the Bell Labs, the Crawford Hill Library had subscriptions to everything I wanted. And they had a habit of distributing things. A journal would come in, they had a distribution list, and it would go from desk to desk. And so I could read the Proc IRE, or IEEE now, transactions on antennas and propagation, and what's the other one? The
Microwave theory and techniques.
MTT, yes, microwave theory and techniques. This had the further advantage that I wasn't supposed to hold on to them for very long. So it required a certain amount of discipline to read the interesting things and pass on all the rest of it. Anyway, so I dropped my IEEE membership, and I'm glad to have it again. Thank you.
We have some special HKN gifts for you, because we can replace this with a beautiful HKN towel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and again, congratulations, Dr. Wilson. This concludes the formal eminent member ceremony. On behalf of the HKN Board of Governors, I would like to thank AT&T Labs and Nokia Bell Labs for hosting this event. I also thank Bala Prasanna, IEEE Region 1 Director, and Region 1 and 2 for co-sponsoring this event. Thanks to Kid August for all her work in organizing this event, and thank you to the HKN staff for all the behind-the-scenes work to make this event possible. This time, I'd like to ask all HKN members in attendance to join us in cutting the cake in honor of our 120th anniversary. And following the cake ceremony, we invite you to a museum tour led by Melissa Knoll. Thank you all for coming.
Everybody here knows who still has to be fruit.